afraid of the dark? Are you scared?
Is that not the coolest thing you have ever seen? We are back, baby. What's going on, beautiful people? I am the Grandmaster, and I also go by D-Ray, and I am your coach of the San Diego Snugglers. We are back. I've been waiting a long time to say that again. We've been on a little bit of a break to wait for the Pokemon Isle of Armor DLC to be released. It is out, therefore we have two draft days that are going to be based upon that, and I'm very excited to bring the very first one to you. This is the BBR, the Breedjex Battle Royale. Just look at this. The San Diego Snugglers have been reimagined. They have been revigorated. They look better than ever. Shout out to Pedro Miranda. Bro, I'm gonna say your full name. Pedro Juan Miranda. He is the beautiful man that created this masterpiece. Absolutely phenomenal. Pedro is actually doing the graphics for the whole league. So, in my opinion, I think it's the best graphics for a draft league I have ever seen. Just bar none. Just phenomenal. Couple things before we get started. Down below, question of the day: which Pokemon from the Isle of Armor DLC are you most excited to see in draft league format? Leave it down below. Just to name a couple, we have Scizor, Lycanroc, Dusk. Those Pokemon are back. And news: the Discord server, the Sanctuary, is now open to everybody. So if you guys would like to come in and hang out, you can talk about any other game that isn't Pokemon if you like. We have a question of the day to keep yourself active. We have lots of cool fun stuff that you guys can participate in. Again, it is open to everybody. I'll leave a link down in the description below for my Discord server. For those who notice, I got something going on with my eyeball. I don't know what it is. It's got a little bit of inflammation going on, but we're just gonna keep on rocking. I feel great. I feel perfect. I feel super healthy. It just showed up overnight. Don't know what it is yet. Nothing contagious, anything like that. It's just probably like a bug bite that just got me right on the eyelid. So if you guys noticed that during the recording, that's that. So I thought I'd just put that out there. But anyway, let's get it popping. If you guys are excited to find out what the San Diego Snugglers are going to look like for the BBR, do me a massive favor and shout out, claw that thumbs up button. And if you're new, por favor, hit the subscribe button. Turn on post notifications, hit the bell button so you guys get notified every single time we post a new video. So we're going to talk about what we drafted, why we drafted it, how the flow of the draft went off. I really hope you guys did enjoy the draft stream that was provided by Seabad. It was a phenomenal job. Hats off to you, my brother. So I don't exactly remember in the time recording this what my draft position was. I think it was 10th, if I remember correctly. And funny enough, you guys have already seen it through the draft stream. Sir Jorge D. Great had the very first overall pick, and my man's picked his mascot. He picked a Lowland Executor. I don't mean to laugh. I just thought it was funny that he memed that. It's a phenomenal. It's not a good Pokemon, but it's a cool pick. It's a cool pick. He picked first overall of the draft, not Urshifu, not Melmetal. He picked a Lowland Executor, and because he did that, kind of pushed all the good stuff back a little bit, which benefited us. Second overall, I believe, was to Matt O'Shea. And Matt took the Dark Urshifu, followed by a Melmetal, and then another Urshifu, and then an Executor, because Gray, Jack, another one of the admin, he wanted to pick Executor as well. So hats off to him. He picked the other Executor. So again, it pushed back a little bit more stuff. So I can't believe this Pokemon fell to me. We actually put this Pokemon up to a vote to see if we're even going to allow it. So the fact that it lasted this long and I was able to take it, I'm just head over heels. I'm so excited. The very first pick for the San Diego Snugglers of the 2020 BBR draft, we selected Dracovish. That's right, Dracovish. The button. Fishious Rend. So for those who don't know, this Pokemon gets this move called Fishious Rend. Fishious Rend gets boosted, doubled if it goes first, if you get hit first with it. And it gets an ability called Strongjaw. Strongjaw also boosts the power of Fishious Rend. And you can stack that upon Stab boost as well as a Choice Band boost. So this thing hits like an absolute behemoth of a truck. It's just absurd. If you don't have a water absorb Pokemon, then you are going to get blown backwards. I'm very excited to use this Pokemon. It's a water dragon type. You can see underneath its name, it plays more as a water type versus a dragon type. So that's kind of what you consider it as, because Fishious Rend is a water type move. And for the most part, that's what you're going to be clicking. And it's very straightforward. It just hits very hard and gets out. It just comes in, takes kills, and then leaves. The fact that we weren't even going to allow it, and I was able to grab it this late into the draft, very, very excited. Excuse me. So Dracovish is going to be the very first overall pick. Now let's build around this thing. And when it came back around, here's the thing, right? For people who, I got a lot of hate, a lot of shade for this next pick. Here's my philosophy on drafts, right? If you need something in your draft, doesn't matter when you take it, because you can never guarantee yourself anything, especially with a league like this, where there's so many good draft league players that know what they're doing, for the most part, right? Nothing's really safe. So, yes, I agree this pick was really early, but I wanted to have it on the team to be able to support Dracovish. The number one thing that switches into Dracovish are water absorb Pokemon, which are typically water types, especially water and ground type Pokemon. Seismitoad, Gastrodon are just to name a few. So I wanted to get a grass type or an electric type, or I can just get both of them in one Pokemon. For the second pick of the 2020 BBR draft, the San Diego Snugglers decided to pick up, with high controversy, Rotom-Mow. Yes, in the second overall pick of the draft. Yes, I do agree with you. It is early, but I wanted to guarantee it on this team to be able to support Dracovish. I get support with Defog and immunity to ground. I get access to Will-O-Wisp. I get access to all my electric type moves, Volt Switch, Thunderbolt, Discharge, as well as Leaf Storm. So this thing is here to ensure that I can get rid of any water absorb Pokemon that my opponent wants to bring, whether if it's a ground type, whether if it's a water type, or whether if it's a ground and water type. This is here to ensure that Dracovish can do what it does best, and that's take lives with Vicious Rend. So this is here as a support Pokemon, and it's the backup to Dracovish. I couldn't take something else to risk the fact that this may not come back to me in the third overall spot. So I originally wanted to get Rillaboom here, but Rillaboom left a little bit after Dracovish did. It was a couple coaches later than I picked, I believe, but I originally wanted to pair Dracovish with Rillaboom, so that didn't work out. So Rotom was my next best bet. So I wanted to guarantee it, so we got it. So we have Dracovish and we have Rotom-Mow. Now, when it came back around, I waited a little bit longer than I did initially. So with the third pick, this is more towards being able to... So Dracovish is a water and a dragon type Pokemon, right? It plays more like a water type, but it has two weaknesses, dragon and fairy. So in order for me to be able to cover the fairy type switch-ins, I wanted to get a fire type, and I'm able to complete my elemental core. So we have our water type with Dracovish, we have our grass type with Rotom-Mow. So we wanted to get a fire type that's able to switch in on fairy types to be able to protect Dracovish in a way. So with the third pick at the 2020 BBR draft, the San Diego Snugglers decided to pick up Arcanine. Arcanine is a phenomenal pure fire type Pokemon with access to Flash Fire as well as Intimidate for support. This thing is super bulky. Apologize for my dogs barking in the background. Arcanine is a great Pokemon to switch in on fairy types, and it gets access to teleport this generation. They gave it to it in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, I believe, and it carried on to Sword and Shield. Why is that important? Teleport is a negative priority move, kind of like Baton Pass, to be able to come in, switch out, and then bring in Dracovish no matter what. So if, just like a scenario, if my opponent has a really strong fairy type, I can switch in Arcanine, eat a hit, click teleport. If they want to switch out, I'm able to switch in Dracovish, and then it can click Vicious Rend. So this is going to support Dracovish another way, so I can switch it in on fairy types and use teleport. It also gets access to a lot of really good moves. It's very hard hitting. It can be run physical, it can be run special. It gets access to Wild Charge, it gets access to Extreme Speed, Flamethrower, Fire Blast, Flare Blitz, Flame Charge. A lot of really cool options to run with Arcanine. We're going to be running it pretty much almost every single week. At least we'll try to, because it's a good support Pokemon for what we have. So with the first three picks, we already have our water, grass, fire core. Fire, water, grass core, the elemental core. So this is pretty good. It's a good core to build off of. My dynamic duo of Dracovish and Rotom are supported by a fairy type switch in. So it's gonna be pretty cool. Pretty cool. And it's also because And it's also awesome that Rotom is immune to ground types because Arcanine is weak to ground. So I can switch in Rotom and you can take care of that. So that is my first 3 picks. I'm very excited with what I'm picking up so far. This is turning it to be one of my favorite drafts of all time, even with the first 3 picks. So when it was coming around, here's the thing. I picked up this Pokemon thinking that I was able to pick up the mascot, Mimikyu, because I play so much better with Mimikyu, and it's an amazing insurance policy. And the way that we kind of had this, to give you kind of context, the website wasn't allowing us to do our full point total. As you can see underneath me, we have a total allowance of 1,200 points. This is a point draft versus a tier draft. Every Pokemon is put into a specific tier that is worth a certain amount of points. So the thing about this is, when I was kind of planning out my draft moving forward, I had miscalculated my points. And I realized that probably around round 7, because I wanted to take Mimikyu around 7 or 8, because I knew the way that everybody was drafting that Mimikyu would be able to last to me that long. How? I don't even know. But I miscounted, and so I at this time I picked up this Pokemon, and when the draft was over, I dropped it for Mimikyu. So on the 4th pick, I picked up Hippowdon. Now I wanted to get a ground type that is going to be really bulky and being able to set up Stealth Rocks, because right now I don't have any Stealth Rock options. I always want to get at least 3 Stealth Rockers, if not 2. Hippowdon at the time was supposed to be my avenue to get Stealth Rock. It's a good support Pokemon with Yawn and gets access to Recovery and Slack Off, and it sets up the sand. Sorry, sets up the sand with Sandstorm, and that's really good for Dracovish because I am available to use his hidden ability, which is Sand Rush. So even though it's kind of a gimmick, it's good to run in some weeks, in my opinion, to slap a Choice Band on Dracovish and to double his speed, to outspeed whatever my opponent has. And it's going to be something really handy to have, and I wanted the option for it, which is why I wanted to pick Hippowdon. But this thing was 160 points. Like I said, moving down the draft as we move forward, I realized that I miscalculated how many points that I would have to get Mimikyu. So I replaced Hippowdon with Mimikyu now. So the next pick that we have, so we got rid of Hippowdon and we picked up Mimikyu. So this was after the draft, right? So we had Hippowdon until the draft was over. We replaced Hippowdon with another ground type, which we'll get to a little bit later. But we did pick up Mimikyu, and this is going to be our Pokemon moving forward. Unfortunately, because of the rules that we set, I do have to work with Hippowdon for week number 1. I won't get Mimikyu until week number 2. Our first week 1 opponent is going to be Dietite, aka my good buddy Jason. So he's going to see Hippowdon. He's not going to see Mimikyu. Mimikyu will be week 2 moving forward. Mimikyu is a phenomenal insurance policy moving forward. Mimikyu, with his disguise ability, even though it got nerfed, is still able to take any hit with only 8% damage and then retaliate. It gets free setup, essentially. It's a really good stabs. So the Ghost and the Fairy stabs basically are almost unresisted. It gets access to Wood Hammer. It gets access to Drain Punch. Really good options. It could be defensive with the Curse set. It could be a really good substitute Pokemon. There's a lot of options to run with Mimikyu, but this is basically the insurance policy to ensure that I don't get swept, or I could pick up the kills if I can chip down my opponent's team. There's been a lot of times where I've had Mimikyu and it's become kill leader, because it's basically does one thing really well, is it comes in late, sets up, and then shadow sneaks everything else and kills it all. So I'm gonna have a little competition here from who's gonna be the kill leader, whether if it's gonna be Dracovish or if it's gonna be Mimikyu. We'll see. But I'm very excited to have these. So notice that now I have my Fairy type to pair with Dracovish, which is my Dragon type. So I just need my Steel type to finish this whole thing out. So again, for week 1, we will have Hippowdon, but for week 2 on, we will have Mimikyu moving forward. And then for the next pick in the 2020 BBR draft, the San Diego Snugglers decided to pick up Duraludon. Now, this is going to be my second Dragon type Pokemon, but it does not share the same weaknesses as Dracovish. Duraludon is weak to ground and fighting types, and then Dracovish is weak to dragon and fairy types. So they don't share any weaknesses, which is phenomenal. And Duraludon does, on the dragon side, what Dracovish does not. Because like I said before, Dracovish wants to play more as like a water type Pokemon versus Duraludon is a very hard hitting special attacker with Dragon type moves like Draco Meteor and Dragon Pulse, and very strong Steel type special moves like Flash Cannon and Steel Beam. So Steel Beam is an option to be able to run if I want to. It doesn't get the most amazing coverage. Typically, it just has Dragon Pulse and Thunderbolt, and it does get access to Body Press, which is a good option because it does have a really good defense stat. Doesn't have a very good special defense stat, but the Body Press option is for sure very valuable. And it's going to be my second Stealth Rocker. So I do get my Ground type later on, so this is going to be one of my 3 Stealth Rockers. I think I have 3 or 4. I don't remember, but this is going to be a Stealth Rocker for me, so it's pretty good. I can bring it in on a Fairy type, force it out, set up Stealth Rock, and have the Hazard option if I want it. But this thing hits like an absolute truck. I'm very excited to have my Duraludon. I'm actually going to pull up. I think it's a base 125 special attack, if I do remember correctly. Yeah, base 125 special attack. So this thing's going to hit so hard. It's going to get rid of a lot of fairies. So now we have our Fairy Dragon Steel Core, which is pretty solid. It does not do very good defensively. Duraludon's more of an offensive Pokemon, but I'm very excited to be able to put that kind of pressure on Fairy types that want to come in on Dracovish. So very good Pokemon. I love Duraludon. Probably one of the best designs of Generation 8 in my opinion. So we're going to be running the shiny like you see down below. Okay, so for the next pick of the draft, because Duraludon is going to be covering us more of the dragon side a little bit more than Dracovish will, because Dracovish wants to play more like a water type, like I mentioned before. Dracovish is going to be more like the solid dragon type that's going to cover us with fairy types as well. So they don't share weaknesses, right? So like I said before, Dracovish is going to be weak to dragon into fairy, and then Duraludon has weaknesses to fighting into ground. So I wanted to be able to have a Pokemon to support Duraludon that is going to be supporting Dracovish. So with this next pick in the 2020 BBR draft, the San Diego Snugglers decided to pick up Orbeetle. I'm really excited that I got Orbeetle because under context, it was really cool that 5 other coaches were actually thinking about getting Orbeetle this round. So I'm very excited that I did not wait on it and I picked it up at the time that I did. Orbeetle is going to be a phenomenal Pokemon to support Duraludon because it covers the ground type and the fighting type weakness because it is a really good resistance to both. It gives access to Sticky Webs, which is phenomenal for the entire team because we are a little bit on the slow side. So Sticky Webs is an amazing option for us. I do believe that that Orbeetle also gets access to Trick Room. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm actually going to check that right now. It does have access to Trick Room. It does. So I have access to use Sticky Webs or Trick Room if I wanted to do that. So that way, if there's a team that has incredible speed, I'm not like completely at a disadvantage. So speed control is going to be really great for us. It gets access to Iron Defense, Calm Mind, Store Power shenanigans. So if my opponent doesn't have access to a Dark type, really good options in pivoting like Baton Pass and U-Turn. It's a great support option. It's a good partner to partner up with Duraludon. So I'm really happy that I picked it up at the time that I did. And only 100 points is an amazing value in my opinion. So the next pick, I was thinking to myself, okay, so I don't really have that great of a time with hazards at the moment. My only hazard removal is Defog on Rotom. So if I want to have Sticky Webs now that I have it on the team, there's going to be some instances that I want to get rid of rocks or hazards on my side of the field, and I don't want to get rid of hazards on their side of the field. So I did want to get a Rapid Spinner, and I already have Arcanine that has access to Intimidate. So with the next pick of the 2020 BBR draft, the San Diego Snugglers decided to pick up Hitmontop. So Hitmontop is a really good pairing of a fighting type with Orbeetle. It's going to be the 2/3 part of the Dark Fighting Psychic core. Really good in regards to resistances. That's why you want to get those cores, so that way I like to switch around a lot. So being able to find resistances on the incoming attacks is really good in my opinion. So like I said, I have my second Intimidator, so if my opponent has a lot of really physically offensive threats, then I can shuffle Arcanine and Hitmontop and kind of neuter them in that way. Gives me access to Rapid Spin, so it's my second way to get rid of hazards. It gets access to Technician boosted brand new move Triple Axle, which is an ice type move. Could be pretty good against dragon types or grass types or flying types, which could be pretty awesome. It gets access to Mach Punch. It gets access to Bullet Punch, Close Combat. Really good Pokemon, really good fighting type. And I'm actually pretty surprised that it ended up lasting me this long, to be honest. You'll notice that I didn't get anything new from the DLC. That's probably why I'm able to get these caliber Pokemon. Everything can come. There's nothing that's going to be questionable. Very excited to Hitmontop is on the team. So now at this point on the hazard department, I'm looking pretty weak to Toxic Spikes. Rotom, and Duraludon are my only Pokemon that are immune to them. And if I want to Rapid Spin them away with Hitmontop, it'll still get poisoned. And then that means my only option to remove hazards is going to be Hitmontop, Rotom. And if I have Sticky Webs that week, it's not going to be very good. I also don't have a Dark type. So I decided to get both of those picks, a Grounded Poison and a Dark type, with one pick. So with the 8th pick overall in the BBR draft, San Diego Snugglers decided to pick up Skuntank, a very reliable Pokemon that I've used a lot of the times. Skuntank is great because it fills its role very well. It doesn't have to come every single week. It's more of a situational Pokemon that still is able to come and hold its own. Skuntank is great on the offensive side, on both physically and specially, with access to Crunch, Poison Jab, Sucker Punch, and also Sludge Bomb and Dark Pulse. Gets access to Nasty Plot this generation now, which I believe is new. And it's another Defogger. So it's a Grounded Poison type, which means that every time it comes in on entry, it's going to soak up the Toxic Spice and get rid of them. It's also able to be another Defogger to pair up with Rotom. So now I have 3 different ways to get rid of hazards, which is phenomenal. It's a good utility type Pokemon for us, and it could be pretty clutch depending on the matchup. It's able to fill a lot of gaps that my team may need to get covered depending on what is coming. It's a very good check to a lot of Psychic type Pokemon. It's a very good check to being able to not get stacked by hazards, more in particular poisons, Toxic Spike. So it's a really good niche role to be able to fill, and it's a good option to have depending on the matchup. So I'm very happy to get Skuntank. Okay, so at this point of the draft, I did realize that this is where I wanted to, now that I have filled all these different things in the draft, right? I've got my Defoggers, I've got some Stealth Rock users. I have one Stealth Rock user, and I was going to grab the other ground type that was going to replace Hippowdon, because at this point I wanted to take Mimikyu, and I realized that Mimikyu was technically a tier 2 Pokemon in the draft that we used, and I thought that it was 140 versus 160. So I was like, oh no, now if I want to have Mimikyu on the team, which I really do want to have Mimikyu as my Fairy type and my Ghost type, I'm going to have to drop Hippowdon for something. And luckily enough, I was able to still make only one adjustment with the points that I have to be able to make it fit. With this Pokemon, I had my eyeball on it right before I took Skuntank, hoping that they wouldn't snipe it, because it's actually become one of my favorite Pokemon of the generation. So with the 9th pick of the 2020 BBR draft, my replacement for Hippowdon is going to be Sandaconda. So Sandaconda is going to fill somewhat the same roles of Hippowdon would have had. It doesn't have access to reliable recovery. It doesn't get slack off or recover, things like that. It does have access to Shed Skin plus Rest. Shed Skin plus Rest, which is not always guaranteed because it's only a 30% chance to remove the status ailment. But nonetheless, it's still an option. It's a good Stealth Rocker. Gets access to Sand Spit, which means that upon contact with, if it's a special or physical move, then it releases Sandstorm, which is going to be great for Dracovish. So in a way, it kind of fills the same role of Hippowdon was going to do. So with the less points, I'm able to grab Mimikyu. So now that I have Sandaconda, at the moment, during the draft, I have 2 ground types. And it looks kind of weird, but when the draft is over, I had dropped Hippowdon to grab Mimikyu. So I'll be able to use Mimikyu after week number 2, moving forward. So Sandaconda is a phenomenal Pokemon. I love this Pokemon. It's a very good bulky. It's a very good bulky Pokemon. I believe it's a base 127. Defense, Sandaconda. So its defense it's got 107 in attack, 125 in defense, which is much bulkier than Hippowdon, but it doesn't have as high of an HP stat. It's only 72 versus Hippowdon's like 1 something, 110, 105, something like that. I don't remember. But Sandaconda actually is a little bit bulkier when it's fully physically defensive than Hippowdon. Fun fact. So, and it's also faster, much faster, base 71 speed, and when you have a defensive Pokemon that can outspeed other defensive Pokemon, that is clutch. And in my opinion, as I was looking deeper into it, this Mon fits better on my team for one move. It gets access to Glare. So Glare gives me the opportunity to paralyze ground type Pokemon. And I now have Thunder Wave access with a couple different Pokemon on my team, as well as Glare, to be able to give me another option to be able to slow down my opponent's Pokemon for Dracovish to come in and completely slaughter them. So Glare is going to be an amazing utility move that I use on Sandaconda quite often. So very excited to have this thing on the team. Now with the last pick, even though I do have a lot of speed control options with Sticky Web, Glare options, Trick Room, things like that, I'm not incredibly slow. The fastest Pokemon that I have right now is Mimikyu with base 96. I don't pass the 100 threshold, so I had to pass the 100 threshold and pass 110 with something that's going to be pretty gimmicky, but I love to use this Pokemon because it could, in some matchups, it could be really, really good. It could be really, really good. So with the very last pick, with my last 60 points in the 2020 BBR draft, we picked up Persian. So Persian is going to be our normal type Pokemon to be able to soak up ghost type hits, so that way Gengar and them can't just spam Shadow Ball with their choice Specs or their choice Scarf, which could be pretty clutch. This thing gets access to Ignition boosted fake outs. So it does a couple things well. It's able to come in, get some good, really hard fake out damage, you turn out. So it's going to be the chipper. It also has access to Technician, like I said, to boost water pulse, things like that. It did kind of suffer a little bit losing hidden power this generation, but nonetheless it does get really great coverage for some niche matchups. Unfortunately, this Persian doesn't get access to knockoff, which would have been pretty awesome, but it does not get access to knockoff. That's only the Alolan version. But nonetheless, it hits the 115 base speed tier, which sometimes in some matchups could be just enough if I don't have access to anything else really. And being able to pick this up on the very last pick, it's going to be filling a role that's really crucial for the team. It doesn't have to come every single week, but it's an option to come if I absolutely need it. So Sticky Webs and Thunder Wave and Glare Spam is going to be something that we're going to be looking into, as well as Trick Room, but Persian is going to be a really good option to be able to outspeed those base 110s. So very good Pokemon in that regard, I think. So that's going to be the team. This is the San Diego Snugglers for the season of the BBR. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. There's a lot of really good roles that we filled, right? We have our Fairy Dragon Steel core, our Fighter Warrior Grass core, our Dark Fighting Psychic core. And why are those important? Because they cover each other's resistances. So when something's super effective on one thing, you can switch in another part of the core to be able to be resistant to it, because they love to do a lot of switching. We have a lot of options to remove hazards. We have hazards ourselves. So I'm actually really excited to have this team. I don't see very many weaknesses on it. The two glaring weaknesses that I see is that I only have 2 Stealth Rock setters, and the speed aspect is going to be kind of hard to control, but nonetheless, this is actually one of my favorite teams I've ever drafted. I'm very excited to use it. It's going to be a really fun time. I love to have a team that's able to utilize all the pieces, and everybody's going to have a role, and I'm sure that everybody's going to come to at least one game, so I'm very happy with it. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below, and make sure you answer the question of the day. Thank you guys so much for joining. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys support us. The first week is going to be against Diet Tight. I believe it's going to be a week after this draft analysis goes up, so that's going to be a really good one. We're going to hit the ground running. There's a lot of really good coaches this season, so there's not going to be any easy weeks. It's going to be tough every single time. So if you guys are excited for it, again, smash that thumbs up button. That's all I got for today. So I'm going to get the heck up out of here. Have a great rest of your night, and above all else, be nice. Peace.